Melanie. I'm the project coordinator for Braids for AIDS. We've been talking over the past couple of sessions about consent, about talking to your partner or potential partners about their sexuality and whether they're tested or not. We've been talking about boundaries. Had a lot of good conversation, and today is the last episode, and we're kind of wanting to talk about our mindsets around sex. In life, we all adapt behaviors, core beliefs, and attitudes about everything in life. And I felt like, we really need to focus on what are our attitudes about sex? What are some of the beliefs that we're holding, carrying around with us, so that we're able to not only just look at our behaviors and change how we handle sexual situations, but really just change our mindsets around that. So today I kind of had some lovely ladies here joining me to be part of this conversation. And how we're going to start this conversation is I'm just going to throw out some statements, and I just kind of want to get everyone's opinions on what their beliefs and attitudes are around sex. Yeah, so the first kind of statement that I have here is sex benefits one person. So, like, what do we think about that statement?
False. Well, it shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. Okay, false.
I don't think it should.
Okay, why or why not?
Well, sex, is something that is shared between two people, right? And it's two consenting, hopefully adults, that are consenting to merge their two bodies into one. So it shouldn't be for one person's pleasure only, unless that is the consent that is made within that agreement.
Okay. Like maybe there's some relationships where you think that maybe there's some situations that one person says, like, I don't care about myself, I'm just gonna do that for you. You think?
I believe some people do that. They put themselves in that experience, and they choose to do it too, right? So
I completely agree.
So I think it's really the relationship that between the agreement between the two people, right? But it should be intimacy between two people agreeing to bind their two bodies into one.
Right.
That's what it should be.
Yeah, it should be. That's I think that's a very important concept to think about, sex being like two people becoming one. Yeah.
What this was meant for, like, I always think of one hand can't clap, right? So when you're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're merging, it takes two, and honestly, it should be both parties benefiting from it, because either way, what's the point of sex?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a lot of people who kind of live by that rule, that sex only benefits one person? Like, are there things that?
Yeah. I believe, like, most men feel like they should be satisfied even if the woman is not, willing to participate.
Okay.
And they kind of persuade or whatever, especially like in relationships or marriage, they feel like, okay, well, this is something I need, and you're supposed to.
Well, could it be ownership? Like, they think they own you because like, even like, say in a marriage, and a husband is being forceful to his wife, to do something maybe she doesn't want to do right there and then, or at all with him, and whatever agreement they might have had, if it was an arranged marriage, or she probably felt obligated, so she had to be with him. That could change, the dynamics of things, where it's like, well, this person thinks that they owes them, so they think that they can have it whenever they want.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and there's young men, young adults getting into a relationship with girls, and you're telling them that if they, they expect that, and if they don't, then they can't be with them. And these girls give themselves, well, yeah, I'll do it because I want to be with you.
Yeah, and then that starts a mindset with these young girls, that where they're not being given as much as they're giving, that starts a mindset that becomes the expectation, that they start to forget about themselves.
Wow.
And a lot of women grow up and they continue with those same traits, thinking that they're just a tool for a guy's pleasure, which is definitely not the case.
Yeah. Because the stigmatism is that if I don't give him it, some other girl will. You know what I mean? And in today's society, it's so easy to, because everyone's basically being sexually active before marriage.
Very true.
Right.
Kind of like so easy for us as women to kind of throw away and not think about what do we need in a relationship. Half the time, yes, we're sexual beings, but there's a lot of other things that we might need in order to feel safe enough to do that.
I think when it boils down to it, it's really about like the what we teach our kids, you know, and having that conversation about sex with our children. I know, like I grew up in a very religious family where they did not talk about, you know, how to protect yourself, how to, you know, like those situations that do come up with like, I call those kind of guys like scavengers, like, you know, they're just really just looking for, you know, whatever they can find, right? And like my mom didn't warn me about scavengers and how, like, what to say to them, my mindset, you know, because maybe she wasn't in that situation, you know. My mom married my dad at a very young age, at 20 years old, and she never had to deal with dating. You know, like my parents are still together, so they never had to deal with divorce. You know, so I've never had to experience it. So like in situations for young girls, right, their parents might not have been through those kind of situations to help, you know, show them, you know, what to do in scenarios like this, or to give them power, strength within themselves to know like that they don't need to take that route. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
To feel secure in a relationship.
It's true. Like I think that first like lesson should really come from the home. It should come from people who are caregivers, right? Whether it be your mom, dad. I know for me, my grandmother, or whatever, right? So, and I think that sometimes like what teaches us. Like I look back in terms of culture, in terms of music, and it's just kind of like what are the images that we see around the role of a woman. And it's like the role of a woman has to be sexy, and we, you know, we shake our ass and we do this, and we're kind of like enticing men to want us. That's at least kind of like a lot of people's perspective in terms of like what are the messages that women are given, that you have to look a certain way to please the opposite sex.
Yeah, to attract them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about sex being a condition for receiving love? That's a statement that I have here too.
I think some people, they experience love differently, you know? There's different love languages, you know? And like some people's love languages might interfere with their perception of like, you know, how to show love and how to receive it. And so they might use sex as a tool, like, you know, like touch, right? As like, okay, that is love to me. But really they don't have that what do you call it? That connection with that person, you know, like that real deep connection and communication. You know? So
I feel like people don't even think about that anymore, having a connection with someone emotionally before they just get physical.
there's
It's huge. Once you've like, I believe like once you experience the both where you had sex without the connection and then you had sex with the connection, you can feel the difference. And you know when you're making love and it is love. I think it's once you have that connection with that person, it's just like kind of ignites, and then it's just like love making starts happening, but it's not required to feel love.
Like first, like you mean like before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have that connection.
I think that should change though, like instead of teaching, you know, kids in school like, okay, this is how you do sex or whatever, like start maybe with like maybe the foundations of like what love really is. You know, like a lot of times, because like schools, what I realize is that like they don't really teach you the actual things that you really need to learn.
Sex education includes what? Really?
And it's not just including sex and how to protect yourself, but mentally, are you ready to be in love? You know, and what is it to be in love?
You know what it means to have sex mentally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a huge responsibility emotionally psychologically to think about the consequences of when you have sex with someone. And I don't think that a lot of people really pay attention to the connection part. They're just kind of like, well, or like, do people even want to have an emotional connection?
I think in this day and age, there maybe not. Not as much as you would you'd think, like back in the days, right? There is so much things that are making us so
Selfish.
yes, or what do you call it, like social distancing. Like there's a lot of that going on, right? And so with the internet coming into play and stuff like that, you know, you can just find whatever you need and move on with your daily life, right?
Exactly.
So it's like these apps are okay, swipe, let's find somebody. It's like a meat market, right? And then
It's so lacking in intimacy.
it's lacking. It's lacking. And I feel like when you do find that person that you connect with on such a deep level, it just feels so amazing, right? And then sometimes I think as young adults we rush in because it feels so good, but we don't really understand that there's so much more dynamics to a relationship. And I think that's where the whole spiral just kind of starts, you know, like
That's
From-
that's very deep.
yeah.
I was dating this guy when I was 17, and it was like, okay, we've been dating for X amount of time. I guess we do it now. And it was like click clack boom done. And then it was like, okay, but like I don't feel like hanging out with you because there wasn't a connection there. We just were dating for this amount of time. So you think once you've been together,
Yeah.
that connection just happens with like chronologically instead of like thinking about what you're feeling.
Wow.
And so I had this mindset of, okay, well, I've been with him long enough that it wouldn't be him taking advantage of me, right? I guess let's go for it. And then after, I was sitting there thinking like, it wasn't that all it was cracked up to be. It didn't seem like it was really worth it because I didn't wait for someone that I actually had a connection with. I just waited for enough time to chronologically pass that I thought it was okay for me to do it.
Yeah. I think it's so insightful that you actually are aware that that's kind of what it was, that you just felt like that, you know, a certain amount of time had to pass. I think that, or that you even like spoke about what you thought, because how many times do we think about what we're thinking, or we're self-aware about what we're thinking,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of it is like, you know, what are some of the things that you're telling yourself? Oh, like, I guess we've been together, or I guess like he's cute, I guess he's not forcing me, or whatever it is that you're saying, right? Any other thoughts from some people that maybe we haven't heard from?
I think it's just that experience when you have no idea or clue how to go into a relationship, or like what are the signs you look for when you are ready? Like what are
Yeah.
those? Like how do you know when you're ready?
How do you
That's
know?
the thing, I guess, like going into a relationship at a young age or like having your first relationship whenever is just that experience to kind of figure it out. You're not really like being with a person just to fall in love because you have no idea what love is.
Exactly.
A lot of young people, I noticed when I was young, I kind of mistook love for like infatuation. A lot of the times, like my first boyfriend, I think I was just really infatuated with him more than I was in love with him. So yeah, because it was a crap relationship.
You found that out after the fact.
I found that out after the fact. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very true, because I think we get confused.
It's very confusing, even for adults. Infatuation versus love, right? But I feel like there's three components that will make a really good relationship. Now I forgot what the three components are, but like I know that there's three. I think there's communication, not just attraction, but like I don't know if it's synchronicity or whatever. Like, you know, like you guys are on the same kind of wavelength of understanding, and then like
Your goals, where you want to end up.
yeah, like you know, like making sure that you guys are on the same like understanding. I don't know, like understanding, communication, and I guess attraction. You know,
Yeah,
attraction has to be there,
for sure.
but there should be just like three main components that we should just all look out for
Right.
and say, okay, well, if there's two out of the three, then maybe this is not gonna work. We will have to have three out of the three for both sides, you know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
of connecting for
Right.
it. Like, so we need to have like some sort of like system, you know,
Yeah.
that is taught where
It's true.
it's like,
It's true.
okay, what are the three components that will make a wonderful relationship? Okay, we have these two. We have great attraction, and we have, you know, we have great synchronicity, but maybe our communication is weak, which might not hold up for a good, positive, long-term relationship.
Right.
You know, or maybe like we have great connection and like synchronicity, but then like attraction is not there, right? So you probably might cheat on them in the future because like, you know, like the attraction's not there. So making sure that all three components are valid on both sides, present. I think having a system, I think, would help so much.
It's true. There's an equality wheel that kind of describes all of the healthy qualities that a relationship should have, and it has things like on there that you said, like, you know, like the communication. There's inclusivity. There's like respecting and trust.
Yeah.
Like respecting someone's opinions and their values and their perspective, and trusting on both sides. And so there's like, you're right, there is a lot of components that children should be taught in school, and not just like when you're in an abusive relationship, then you're taught what a healthy relationship
Yeah.
looks like, right? I think we should do more of that teaching way before. Because how can you
think
figure that?
that maybe, like, I think your idea was a great idea,
Thanks.
but I think that maybe we should be teaching, like, more, what is it, more malleable minds, that it's not as much of a system as, like, because that was what got me into, okay, X amount of time equals, let's bust it open. I think that, like, we should be teaching kids that it's not always like this, you've passed this check mark, so that means
Right.
this happens now,
Exactly.
because that leads to a lot of people like me. And like I think that with the criteria that you were talking about before, like, it works, but at the same time, like, I'm in a relationship now where the communication wasn't always there, and we had a couple of fallouts from it, a couple of like real not good things, but we also learned from that, and now we have all three of the check marks because we took that time to figure it out and learn how to communication was down here. Okay, let's get it up here.
Right.
Like,
I think that's
I'm
a lot.
going
I
by
think that's
feel,
like
you know?
relationship 101. Like, you have to learn to communicate with each other, and I think it doesn't just happen overnight. For me, I think it takes up to at least 6 months from when you meet someone to like when you actually can really picture yourself. Can you be with this person or not?
Yeah.
I think 6 months is like the time frame. Like, okay, you really think about it, and then like the next 2 to 3 months after that is like, okay, like how can we merge ourselves to being together? You know, like. I feel like there's some sort of like calculator, but like also in retrospect of like how you fit in there in like with your partner. Like, are you guys on? Is it easy to communicate? You know, if it's always challenging, then chances are like it might not become easier. You know, so it's like really understanding like, can this work? You know?
Right. And I think like in any relationship there is going to be conflict, there's going to be disagreement. I think that as long as you both kind of have like a good balance in terms of all of those things, where you can revisit the conversation and get back to that place and start saying, you know, well, yeah, I was wrong, or had that communication, right? So that's part of it. But kind of going back into kind of like what sex is and what love is, you know, it's just like you're right, we're not taught what love is and the difference between I look at someone, I'm physically attracted and I want to be physical with them, as opposed to like I love them. Because some people like there's even that statement of love at first sight, and that could be like a whole nother conversation too, but like that's kind of thrown in there too, right?
Yeah. Personally, for me, sex was something I thought was love, and it was like all that I saw as love in my environment, or like on TV or everything. I grew up in a household where I really didn't feel that love connection with my parents and everything. So I looked outside for it, and that really taught me a lot. because I still did not feel love, even though I thought it was love. And I had to learn the hard way in learning how to love myself and what I need in order to tell a person what I need, right? So it's knowing how to love yourself and what you need as a person to feel love,
Exactly.
and able to communicate that, especially knowing yourself and saying, okay, well, I'm not gonna accept this way of being treated,
Exactly.
and setting those boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you do that, the person is like, okay, well, if I want to be with this person, I have to.
Follow this. Yeah.
And if I can't, then maybe I should let her go and be with someone who will give her or treat her the way that she needs to be loved.
I love that.
Yes.
I feel like you nailed it in terms of just everything, like self-love, absolutely number one. Cause I feel like I came from that same sort of that where you came from, that place of okay, the love isn't intense enough in home. I need to find what it really feels like. But you'll never be able to. You'll keep searching and trying to reach, and then you'll actually turn into the crazy bitch, right? Because you don't really understand what it is inside that you need first.
Yeah.
It's life. I think is to me, life is learning how to understand yourself, yourself, it's
Self-worth.
just everything about self, right? It's a discovery of self. We have a lot of clients that are older that wow, I never knew this about my hair, but it's a self-discovery. They're older, but they've somehow learned eventually, right? And I just feel like if we can kind of teach our younger generations how to develop self-worth, self-love, and to identify our needs and our wants, I think that we can make better decisions in choosing our love partners.
I think what you guys are both saying, I can actually visualize so many homes where families are not nurturing their children enough. Children are being emotionally neglected. And I can relate to that, when you're that child where no one really pays attention to, and you're kind of just there floating around. And, that child is looking for a connection with someone. That child is looking to be, looked after and talked to and encouraged and validated. And all of those things are necessary for a healthy-minded individual. And so when that's missing, we tend to grow up. And like so many of us, we look outside for love. Sometimes we are abused by people in the family that want to show us love, or taken advantage of. But more times too, we search for all of those things in other people, when really if we had that as children within ourselves, we wouldn't be looking to this, that, and the other thing to fulfill and make ourselves feel like we're valuable. So sex is one of those things that's huge, where we're looking for that physical contact with people, to feel that feeling. It's basically like a drug.
To feel good, to feel good about yourself.
Yeah. You had touched on something and it just totally slipped my mind, but you were saying in home, receiving love from your as kids are they just need that support, that love, right? And I find that the conversation should be as adults, because a lot of adults are still struggling with love and with self-identity and self-worth, right? So I feel like some of the blockages that we have around love and around sex comes from childhood.
Yes.
Right? One of my reflective moments of breakthroughs, because I have to admit, I was that crazy bitch, and I use it very I'm saying, I don't know if you want to censor that out or whatever, but that's what I refer to it as, because I was that crazy girl where I would attract men, right? But I didn't know how to keep them. They were running away. They were literally running away, right? And they're running away because I had some blockages within myself that I was unaware of. It was my communication. how I communicated with them, my self-worth, you know, like how I viewed my worth for myself, and also what I was requiring from them, you know, and going back, it's like my family, they showed me love, but in a different way, right?
Like a
It was
providing way, right?
a providing way, a
Not
very
very nurturing.
Yeah.
not very nurturing.
No
Cook for you
hugs, no
this food.
kisses, no I love you.
Exactly.
How are you
Oh,
feeling?
I'm so
What are you
proud
feeling
of
today?
you.
Like da da da. It's like, oh, why are you sad? Da 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 da. I have this to deal with. I have this to deal with. With your
I have so
child.
much bills.
I wish I could be a child.
Exactly.
And I'm like, but I still have feelings too
Right.
that I need to understand, and I'm coming to you.
And you
help
have to
me express
understand,
that.
and this is when I actually went deep into it. Sorry, so I went deep into the understanding, like why were my parents reacting like this, right? And I realized this was my breakthrough moment for me, and I realized they're acting like this because their parents acted like this,
Right.
Mhm.
right? So we're coming from a generation, especially of trauma too,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So you know, when you look back, I'm Jamaican, right? So when we look back, you know, we come from slavery, and how slavery was positioned, and how men were positioned to think through slavery. They can just go and have sex with anybody. It was fine because they were reproducing anyways, and like that mentality was okay in the home, right? So then, you know, feeling abused as a woman was okay. And so the mother grew up feeling like it was okay to be abused by her husband. And so the kids see that, right? And then they think it's okay, right? So for me, I grew up in a very strict family home now, where it's like, it was not like, it was more Christian, right? So it was because the Bible said this, because the Bible, so they didn't really have any explanations. And I'm a very curious being, right? I want to learn, I want to know, I want to
Right.
understand.
Why?
Right? Yeah, so why, right? And then through my breakage point, I realized that the reason why I was communicating and chasing men away was because like I came from this background where it's like, you did this to me, so I'm gonna like, you know, like be all mad and like defensive, and like, you know, like you're gonna have to pay, because like that's how my parents treated me, right? You're bad, you're gonna have to pay for this, you know, you're gonna have to get
Right.
some lessons. So it wasn't coming from an area of like, okay, so love, like, how can I show you how to do this? You know, my parents never did that. So when I realized, like, damn, I'm chasing these guys away, I can't really get the love that I need because, you know, I can't even get past that certain point,
Exactly.
right? Then I realized, okay, this is what I need to do to change within myself. And once I said, okay, I need to change the way how I talk to them. Maybe instead of, if they don't call me back, don't chase them down saying, why didn't you call me back? Okay, just let it be, you know, like really bring up my femininity, my feminine energy. So a lot of people don't realize that they have masculine and feminine energy.
Right.
And that also messes a whole lot of things up, because there's women that are masculine and are very strong. Like, I have masculine energy. I'm a very strong, you know, independent woman. I'm a provider. Like, I want to provide for my family. I want to build security. So understand, like, that was something I had to learn about myself. And so that's what I was saying, like, life is like a discovery, right? You have
Right.
to learn about yourself
Right.
before you're able to show love to others.
Exactly.
Now I'm married, you know, I have a wonderful husband, and he fulfills my needs because I know what those needs are. And so I didn't just look at everything, all the fluff on the outside. I looked on the inside as well, and I said, okay, wow, like, that's the type of person that I need.
That's beautiful.
And, you know, once you can understand yourself, then you can understand what it is that you need from your partner. And then if that partner understands themselves too, then it makes it just even better, because then you guys can have a healthy relationship and grow healthy together.
For me, growing up was with my parents. It was like just my mom, mostly, and like I had a lot of stepdads that would come in, and like my mom would have a belly, and then it's like, okay, they're gone, bye bye. Like, so it was just seeing that they were coming, going, coming, going. I didn't see, she was just all on her own with 5 kids. And she had to be strong. She had to pull a lot. She had cancer. She had a stone in her gallbladder while she was pregnant. She was on bed rest. And I was the oldest girl. So I had to cook and clean, take care of my siblings, make sure their homework was done, make sure the house was clean, you know, those stuff. Like, and also go to school and do my own homework. But I was struggling in school because I have dyslexia, and then I'm trying to convey that to my mom. She gets frustrated. Oh, da 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 da. It's so simple, you know. And then I get beat for that, and then she's stressed out. She automatically takes her stress out on me, and then it's like when I say something, they don't believe me. When I say certain things happen, so I was touched by one of my stepfathers, and then I was touched by another, and I'm telling them, okay, like this is happening to me. Why are you still with this man? I had to grow up my whole life with this guy. Well, most of my life with this man in the house, and my mom was pointing fingers. It's your fault. Why are you wearing this in the house? Why are you wearing that? I'm like, you buy my clothes. Like, you're buying my clothes. I'm in my bed sleeping, and I'm wearing shorts.
So victim shaming,
I'm under
pretty
the
much.
sheets. Yeah, under the sheets, and I'm getting beat for it.
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah,
by the way.
but
I just wanted to say
It's
that.
something that I had to like. I just thought, like every kid, Caribbean person goes through that, right? Because that's the way she made it seem. Like, oh, I've been through that.
Did you have a
da, da,
breakthrough
da.
moment though, like where you realize that maybe this is something to, like, have you healed from that yet?
I think it's a long process for me because it was a lot of stuff adding up to it, and I really didn't have anybody to talk to when I was younger to help me understand what I was going through. And being a teenager and going to school, and you know, I started to dress a certain way because I'm like, why do I have to cover up myself to make other, you know, people feel comfortable? I said, this is my body. I want to learn how to love it, right? And then because of that, I was accused of, oh, you're sleeping with some boy, what da 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 da. Looking at my breast, oh, your breast is getting huge and thing. Who's playing with it? Like certain things like that.
Oh my gosh.
It was hard to love myself, and also, you know. So I was like, why am I getting accused of all this stuff? I might as well do it if I'm gonna get beat, because I wasn't doing that to not get in trouble, and I'm getting in trouble regardless. So I rebelled against it, and then I started to tell my mom whatever I needed to hear, whatever, just because I had so much pain that was bottled up. So I was just telling her whatever I wanted. I never told you to go sleep with Tom, Dick, and Harry and have so much of kids that I have to take care of them for you.
So you
because
started
you're
being
sick.
rude back.
Yeah, because I was like, I was there trying to help you.
What age was that?
Everything.
16, 17?
Yeah.
That's usually when the rebel
Very-
starts,
yeah.
and that's when I started rebelling
You're
against
starting
my
to like,
parents.
discover who you are. You're
Yeah,
just like
it's at a point where you just can't take it anymore. It's like I can't take this shit no more.
Right.
You know, like I feel you. Like I totally can like understand. I can't relate because I have not been in that experience. It must have been very, very hard, you know. But like, I feel like we should have someone to talk to help with overcoming those things, because you know, maybe your mom went through some stuff, right?
Yeah.
That why she didn't understand how to nurture you more.
Don't know how to respond to you
She
in that
didn't,
way.
because she didn't want to feel like she was a bad mother.
Of course, yeah.
You know, it was really hard enough what she was going through, and she just didn't know how to handle it. She had a lot of rage from everything that she was going through.
Yeah.
And when I got older, I did try to talk to her. I left at 16, and she left me. She left Canada and went to Trinidad, and we had to relive that because I'm like, I don't want to live with all this pain. I don't want to pass this on to my children.
You made that decision.
I had to, because I said, I noticed from the way that my grandmother treated my mom, and my mom is just yelling, talking to her however she wants, and I'm like, I'm
You don't
doing the
wanna-
same thing to my
yeah.
mom.
It's
Right.
a generational trauma that I was talking
Absolutely.
about.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So in those situations, what do you feel like you've learned? What are some of the things that you learned about?
I learned
Love.
that it was forgiveness. It was a huge part. Also forgiving myself, because there was a point where I started to blame myself for everything that was happening to me. Like, oh, they're right, I did do this, and that's probably why this happened to me.
Yeah.
You know? And I had to forgive myself. That was the first step in learning how to love myself.
I would imagine that maybe sometimes some of us, I don't know what everyone else's experiences are, but I know that we all kind of have different kinds of struggles as well. I know for myself, kind of similar to kind of both of yours in different ways. But I think sometimes we learn that love is hurtful, and that people who are supposed to love us hurt us. right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a huge one because, you know, sometimes we put up with a lot of hurt in the sake and for the sake of love in that sense. Because I think that in order to kind of go through that healing journey, it also kind of requires us to kind of think about, what did this teach me? What did I learn from this about myself, you know, or about the situation?
Yeah, I feel like definitely always reflecting, it will help, you know. What did I learn from this situation? I always look at things as like as a learning experience because we're going through experiences that are shaping and developing us in our growth and in our awareness within ourselves, right? Um, so reflection is key, and also forgiveness, like what you were saying. But not only just forgive your mom, forgive her grandmother, and forgive your grandmother's mother and father. You have to forgive them too because they did not understand the dramatic effect that it will have down the line. And
Right.
once I was able to forgive my ancestors and forgive my grandparents and forgiving my parents, then I was able to forgive myself. And then from that, I found strength. And from there, I was able to grow. But you have to also make sure your mind is also ready to grow as well, right? It's a big one, but retraining your mind
Absolutely.
is the hardest part of this whole transition of like accepting self, love, what love means for to love yourself and to love others. But it's changing the mindset, reducing that hurt and learning how to love again and realizing that love is painful and it will hurt. Okay, but it's an experience that needs to happen. We're all beings, loving beings. We're made to love, right? And so if we don't experience it, then we won't know how to show it.
It's interesting because, like, when you say that the love does hurt,
It hurts. It hurts bad.
why do you say that?
I've trusted so many people and even good friends, and that's hurt me. But I still love them. You understand?
In that sense.
In that sense.
Yeah, because in my mind, I think a lot of people might have maybe a different perspective. Because how I view love, when love is complete, and the fruits of love being patient and kind and respectful and inclusive and a whole bunch of other things, right? Then you wouldn't treat people a certain way if they had pure love in what it is, right? So I think that because, you know, love sometimes is tainted, it's not perfect sometimes. I think people try to really adapt what love really means, but I know that it's not perfect. But I know ultimately that that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to feel. It's not supposed to hurt. It's not supposed to, like, I think that there's a difference between having that responsibility of loving people, because that hurts. When you know that you love purely from your heart and other people don't do it back, that is a really deep pain. Knowing that I love people and they don't love me back, right? That's like
The way how I look at love is there's two different vibrations that I see in my perspective of like there is love and then there's fear, right?
Exactly.
So fear is the lowest vibration frequency that you can output to the universe, right? Which is gonna bring back all the negativity that you don't want, right? You don't want that boyfriend that is, you know, like abusive or just only wanting sex for himself, right? But if you're scared of getting that and the fear of getting that, you're gonna attract that. So when you're living in love and you genuinely want to show love to others, not sexually, right, but genuinely showing love with your heart, that vibration is so high that the people who are scared, they're gonna run away from you, and only the people that really can truly feel that power that you're generating will want to come closer to you, and that will create synchronicity and just balance in your life and peace. And when you have peace within your mind, like, I think love will come so easy that you wouldn't even realize that
Exactly.
like all of this bad stuff is around.
Because there's no fear in
There's
love.
no fear.
Right.
So if you understand that there's gonna be some shitty people that are gonna try and hurt you, but you have to realize that it's their fears. It's nothing to do with you. It's everything
Right.
to do with them.
Right.
And so you can't let them hurt you. So you expect that might hurt, right? You can expect it, but don't dwell on it
Yeah.
because it's nothing to do with you. It's them. When
And-
you are when your frequency is so
Exactly.
high.
And I think that when you love yourself completely, to know that you are whole and complete, and you know that I am good with who I am and the way that I am, and people want to behave nasty and go on however they want to go on, you're just like, I'm good. And that's about you.
It's
That's
about
about
you.
like, you have things that you need to work through. You
It's their
have
blockages.
You have a different mindset. You know what I mean? So I mean, once you have that understanding, that's ultimately the place that like I think that we're all trying to get at, where
We're all
we're
trying
just
to
like
get- yeah.
have that warrior shield where nothing can really penetrate that, and like
It's a tough one. It's a
It
tough wall
is.
to build. And I've been honestly, like for me, I've been working on it for the past 6 years. And it's something that you're gonna still keep working on.
Mhm.
But like 6 years ago I realized I was a crazy bitch, I need to change something. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
crazy.
yeah.
You know? But not like crazy like I'll beat your window down and
Yeah.
burn down your house and no, but like in my mind, you know?
I think
Yeah.
like that's our way of labeling certain behaviors or certain needs that we have that are not being met. I think sometimes we can be needy, or we can be like longing for something, and you kind of do that in a sense of desperation. Sometimes
Exactly.
we label that as crazy,
Yeah.
and people see that in that way, but they don't see the need behind that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they won't because of your desperation that's in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a place of desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People see behavior, then they see the actual person, right? And that's just kind of how we are sometimes as humans. We just tend to pay attention to your behavior and define you based on what you're showing them, but they don't really like it. It's special when you find someone who can really see you for who you are, as
Yeah.
opposed to like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think love would ultimately still choose you, even despite some of those things, right? So kind of when we're talking about mindset and like that place that we want to get to, that healing, like the healing journey, and how sometimes long it takes to get there, and still focusing in on sex and the ideas, the healthy mindset that maybe we'd like to have about sex, because we talked about some of the unhealthy things, like that it's hurtful, that it's something to a condition to receive love, kind of thing. What about the healthy mindset? So do we believe that sex is a controllable energy? I know we've been talking a little bit about energy from people a little bit, but what do we feel about that statement, that sex is a controllable energy?
It can be controlled in a sense where I think you shouldn't let sex control you. You control sex, and I'm like people. There was a saying where someone said, a woman, she was aroused, and you can tell by a woman's aroused, like she's hot in that area. She starts to get really moist. Some people use that word. I apologize, but but the woman said, just because my body tells you I'm ready for sex doesn't mean I'm ready for sex.
Wow.
So it was
It's a
that
big one.
control where she was just like, yeah, I'm in control, not my body. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I believe on that statement. Like,
Yeah. So there's a
you're in
difference
control,
between
yeah. You
what.
can control it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah. People do that all the time.
But I get the sense that there are people out there who feel like, but I can't control myself because I'm feeling this, so I have to like I can't.
I think that's it's gonna sound crazy, but I think it's like an attached sex demon.
Or they
That's
just
not
don't
crazy.
want to control it.
Huh?
They don't want to control it because
They
it's
don't
something they enjoy. So it's just like
They feel
why
like
control
they.
it when
Well, it's also giving out strong endorphins. That thing that makes you feel so good, and then it becomes a craving. But I think it's really like there's different types of like, I don't know. I look at them as demons, right? People have their demons, right? So there's different types of demons, and like like being sex crazed is one of them. You know, you become into that habit of like wanting it so much that it's just takes over your thinking, it takes over your whole life. You have to like really deprogram your mind, like really go through rehab.
Yeah, it takes
It's a rehab process.
Well, exactly, because we didn't touch on it because of time purposes, but one of the unhealthy mindsets about sex is that it's addictive, right? Because of the chemicals in our brain that's being released during sex is so strong, and for people who have a lot of trauma, for people who have a lot of issues, and then they get that bit of like that chemical that releases, you can't stop that if they're addicted to sex. Like it's just as strong as any other addiction, right?
I think there's a difference for some people need to realize a difference. You know, it's okay to be freaky, right? But then like to be a nympho is like it's different. You know, there's a difference, and some people just they think that okay because they're freaky they need to be a nympho.
So break that term down a little bit, maybe for those of us who don't fully understand.
Like somebody that needs to have sex all the time.
Okay.
They need to have it all the time, and they're looking to have it with different people because it's like a drug. They need to just get high. They need to get their fix, right? And so they do more extreme things to get their fix.
Wow.
Right? And so they go more extreme. And I think that it's okay to be freaky, right?
Because being freaky
It's
is
just like
you
an
control
expression.
that.
It's what you control, and an
Right.
expression of how you want to show your love, right? But it's not okay to do that with everyone. Like for me, I think that there's a misconception between the two somewhere. Like I feel like people.
I think it could be an addiction in that, like, for me personally, I grew up in an abusive household. And so seeing that, like, watching my parents not be able to love each other properly and not getting that, like, you know, seeing that, okay, I guess this is just what happens. Like, they're having WrestleMania in the hallway, and then, like, we all know what happens when they go to bed. And so, like, I turn into a teenager. I date a guy that clearly doesn't have a connection with me, but he likes whatever's going on in my pants, and I see that as some sort of intimate validation when it's just, no, that's not how people show each other that they love each other.
Exactly.
But that feeling of, oh, he's touching me, oh, he's looking at me, he sees me,
So you want that.
it becomes like you just want it all the time. Why would you not? Feeling
Exactly.
like
Why
that
would you
for the
not?
first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're human, right? But because we're human and we enjoy that feeling because that's how we're created. We're created as sexual beings, right? It's a natural, normal
good thing.
function. Yeah. So, but for those people who feel like they can't control that when it's coming from an unhealthy place, what would we say to someone? How can we control that energy if it, you know what I mean?
I would treat it like any other addiction, really. You just have to give yourself some time. Like, some people just go cold turkey and it doesn't work for them. So you just gotta kind of give yourself some space. Like, I don't know, if you're having like sex 3 times a day, cut it down to 1 time a day for a month, and then next month, you know, you cut it down to like every 3 days, or, you know, and just kind of gradually get yourself to that point where you feel like, okay, this is healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of like saying no to yourself, minimizing your activity for a little bit. Okay.
Practice, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
You can only ever really take something one step at a time. Like,
Exactly.
I'm always trying to, like, do preemptive, like, get ready, do this, like 8 steps at a time. And she's always telling me, like, just relax. Like, you can only do what you can do right now. You can't always prepare for what's going to happen. And with things like that, like, you can't prepare for, oh, well, like, what if I go into, like, sex withdrawal and I need it now? It's, all you can think about is, this is what I'm gonna do today. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll figure it out. But today, this is the goal that I've set, and this is what I'm gonna work towards right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, I completely agree with you. Like, it's really important to take things one step at a time, to take your time and do that. We can also prepare for situations, right? Like, we can hypothetically put ourselves in a situation in our mind and say, okay, what am I going to do if this happens? Am I going to walk with a condom? Am I going to, like, let's debatable whether that you should do this or not, but like, you know, I'm not, I'm on my period, or I'm not feeling well. Like, what are you going to say to get out of a situation if you need to, right? So, I mean, like, we can definitely prepare for certain situations, and I think that you have to take that responsibility on yourself to do that.
Like, to not be trapped in a situation that you can't get out of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I used to do when I was like, I think I was like, addicted to sex. But yeah, like I couldn't go without it, and I had to like, I'm like, okay, this is actually like too much. And I felt like it's like I wanted it, but I didn't want it. Like my body was telling me I needed it, but I was just like, no, like I just want to be normal and go out. You know, I don't want to leave a party and then, you know, like have that urge or like drink something and then I'm just like, ooh. So I would like, I would stop prepare myself. Like I would not shave because I was embarrassed to be seen like not shave or anything. So I would leave everything hairy and then it was just like, no.
That's really smart though. That's really smart. Just don't take a shower.
Yeah, like honestly, whatever works for you to kind of like because it's like you set up yourself so you feel sexy, so you get in the mood. So I do the opposite, whatever doesn't get you.
Yeah, just find
Right?
yeah. I think that's good. Finding what is going to get you to say no. Like for me, it was not putting myself in a situation I knew I couldn't get out of. And that was like a big one for me because I used to put myself in situations I couldn't get out of. And I'm always like this okay mentality, right? Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I can handle it.
Okay, there's no like yes or no.
You know, and like, even though I'm saying okay, I didn't want to really be in that situation. So, setting myself up to not be in those situations is good. Like, okay, yes, we're gonna meet in a public place, right? Or I will not go to your house after
hours. Or even
I will drive my own car. You know, stuff like that. Like really putting myself thinking, okay, or like I will not sleep with this person until we're in a relationship, and that's like a big one. It's a big one, and that was
finding themselves.
That was the last big one that I did for myself, and it really worked. Right? I'm not sleeping with you unless you are my man. That's it.
Yeah.
And your power goes up so much because you're gonna really see who those scavengers really are. They're gonna flock and flee so fast. And you're gonna find the ones that are really down.
And if they're down, they'll stay and
They
they'll
will
wait.
stay, they'll wait, they will ask you to be their girl. But how do you know if they're really serious? It's the actions. Because actions speak louder than words. And never take somebody at value for whatever they're saying. You have to see it. You have to feel their energy. And you have to really, really know, like, okay, like this person is down. Like I know it. They went an extra mile for me.
Thank you for saying that.
As long as you want, but sometimes they're relentless and they'll wait.
They'll wait just to try and get the cookie because they want to prove themselves. So you gotta
eventually they'll show themselves in
they
the
will show.
area.
I'm telling you, they won't last a month. I'm telling you, they won't.
You'll see something in them that's
You'll
like,
see
no,
it.
no, it's
They'll
okay, I'm
mess
good.
up. They'll mess up.
that was never like I don't know what it was for me, but it was like I didn't want the relationship, but it seemed like they always wanted the relationship with me. Because I was going through that whole like I just wanted sex, that was the only way because that was the only way I knew how to love. And they just like argue, oh, why can't you like, oh, talk to me, and I was like, she away, bye.
But
So
some guys love that. They love that chase.
Yeah, you saw that.
I was like, they wanted a relationship and I didn't, and I was just like,
So can we do?
I felt bad. Like I felt like the guy and they were the girl, and I was just like, no, I only came here for one thing.
So and you have to also be clear with what you want to and own it. Like
right.
you wanted it, so like that's what you went for, right? But I'm not coming for anything else. So you gotta let them know straight up, like this is what I'm coming for. Like this is it.
Right.
You gotta really step into your power and own it. Like what do I really want right now from this relationship? And you have to be consenting that this is where the page that we're on.
Right.
And it really boils down to communication at the end of the day.
Right.
Like when we first started this whole conversation, it's like, okay, are we consenting adults? Like you have to be consenting to the full degree. And like, don't put somebody in a situation like they want to be in a relationship, but you just only want to have sex with them for one night. You don't do that to somebody, right? So we have to also, as women as well,
It's important
to also be clear with what our needs are, as well as the men.
And that takes time to sit there and think about and to do that soul searching, to figure ourselves out, to learn to love ourselves, because only then can we say, I don't want that. I'm not here for that.
Exactly.
And that's what because you can't like, well, I don't know what to say in the situation if you haven't figured yourself out first.
Exactly.
Then,
They're pretty honest with it now. I think that guys, just to stay away from that player type mentality and for girls to not attack them, they're pretty honest. They're like, well, I just, want us to be friends and, to kind of here and there, right? They're pretty honest, and I think they get the most because of their honesty. That the girl feels like, I can trust you with my body because I know that you give me that communication and you be honest with me, and it's my choice to whether I accept it or not, right? So I think that is where once you're communicating that back, they would take it the same way. It's like, okay, this girl's being honest. She's telling me what she wants.
Right.
It's whether if I'm up for it or not.
So what do we think about sex being an expression of love, being intimate, and being empowering?
Intimate and feeling.
Sorry, I'm just so nervous.
It's okay. I feel like you have so much to say.
Is sex an expression of love? I'd say a little bit.
A little bit?
A little bit. But it's more about like communication and what she said, like your synchrosities. That's right.
Yeah.
Synchrosities together. But it doesn't make up for the whole relationship. Like, I don't think sex could ever be so good where you'll just stay because of the sex. Unless you're like really, you don't love yourself
Right.
and you're,
Exactly.
you're into low vibrational relationships.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think love is a part, like sex is part of love in a sense where it's like the cherry on top
Yeah.
of everything else.
I think the sex should be the highest vibration shown from love, right? But it shouldn't be the one that should be the first one that you give.
Right. So you don't give or get that in order to get love. Sex is something that you give because you love.
Yeah, it's like gratification.
It's your way of showing someone how you feel about them.
The highest form of love is, I think, showing love. I think sex, you show love. It's very passionate. Like, I've had sex where I'm like,
You cry.
and you cry, like that shit hits you hard, right? That is like a connection, a super duper connection, and that's only experienced through, like a connection where it's like spiritual, physical, everything, like
It's one.
everything's just connected, and that is like the highest form to me
Exactly.
of showing love is through having sex
Right.
Yeah.
on that level
Okay.
where you want to experience, the highest form of love.
Exactly.
It ties everything together.
Do you think people kind of are longing for that experience, or
Of
they
course.
just want a quick ting and
I think people really want that, but it's like they try and have sex with other people to experience that, and they don't really realize that. Like,
I wonder if sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I'm gonna go a little bit against the grain here. I think that I think that it's a form of showing love, but at the same time, I think that everything is relative, and that if you're doing it and it's not for love, doesn't necessarily make you a bag of crap. Like that's definitely like something that people forget sometimes. Cause like me and my boyfriend, we weren't really like looking for anything that long term. And I came over to his house the day we met, and it got pretty hot and heavy the day that we met. And it was kind of like we were hanging out, whatever, and it was after that we had realized, like, maybe there is something a little more going on than just, unzipping each other's pants. And so now we've been together for a year. And I think that the reason that it worked out for us, though, is because we were both solid on what we wanted.
Okay.
And it wasn't, like, nothing was certain, but it also wasn't I have a big crush on this guy and he's just here for a good time, or he likes me and I'm just showing. Like, communication again is super important, because like sex doesn't always, it is a big deal, but it doesn't always have to be an like meditation, spiritual like type of thing. Like, sometimes it's just for fun.
Yeah. So I completely respecting where you're coming from, because I know that there's a lot of people who are just like, well, I just have like a person that I have sex with and it's just about sex and we're both good with that. We've talked about it. It is an agreement. I'm good. And that's just what it is. And there's no like deep, long, emotional connection. It's just sex. But for me, sex is something that's very intimate and very spiritual. And so I think as a society, we lose that importance and that sacredness of sex. Right, and so we've gotten used to the idea of sex just being a thing that we do with someone, or you do for someone, or I'm getting to get my need or to feel good, or to cope. Oh my gosh, so many people use sex as a way to cope with their stress.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I think we've lost just like the word love. Oh, I love this, I love that, I love him, her, whatever. We've lost the true meaning, the true intimacy, the true spirituality of the word, that we're just doing whatever we want with it.
Yeah, because to me, it's like, if it is like that, then in a relationship, why do people get offended when someone cheats? Because it's intimacy. It's like, you're only supposed to share that with me.
Right.
I'm only supposed to feel that love and that connection and feel your body and this and that. Even though sometimes it's not always gonna feel like the cry of love sucky, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just to feel that pleasure, but it's just because it's you and no one else. It's you giving me that.
Right.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind, though, that I've talked to a lot of people who have a very opposite belief system, that because the whole idea of marriage for some people is uncomfortable, because they feel like that, there's always that one person that says that you're mine, I own you. There's that sense of ownership. And so your body is only for me. And some people, they think of sex being very fluid, where you can kind of have sex with whoever you choose to, and it's fine, and nothing's wrong with that because it's natural. Right? So also, like, because I have my opinion and I respect everyone's opinion here, I also know that there's a lot of people who are watching who also have their own opinion, and that if that's kind of like how you view sex, that's that's okay for you to view it that way too. Yeah.
So could you be with someone who told you that they're amorous or something?
So what does that mean?
When you're with more than
So
one people.
when you believe in dating more than one person at a time.
So if someone, like, you mean like if someone told you that that's how they see things?
Yeah.
Yeah, would
that
that
just
would,
be like,
would that be okay with
it's
you?
done? Like,
Well, I think if you view things in the same way, it depends on how you view that whole situation. Like, do you agree with what they're saying, or do you disagree?
I don't agree. I don't know why I don't agree. I don't know what is it inside me that doesn't agree with that.
Well, I think
I just feel like I don't really want to share, and diseases are real. And
I don't want to share, and it's okay to not wanting to share. I think it's totally okay. It's just human nature, Like,
Everything
You
is
gotta find
relative to
somebody who
every
wants the same-
person.
wants the
Just
same
like
thing.
exactly, just like hair.
Yeah, there are people I know that, I don't know if you guys know Shan Booty on YouTube.
Yeah.
She's in a marriage, but it's a very open marriage.
the girl from
right?
Toronto that's in LA now.
She's in LA now? I
Yeah.
don't know that. But yeah, she's
She
in an
has
open,
curly
like,
hair.
she was with her boyfriend for how many years, and they were basically friends with benefits, and they realized that, hey, you give me that connection, right? But I still want to have fun and go meet other people and experience different people, and it's just
And
the
that's
way-
when it comes down to those 3 different levels of things that you need in a relationship, and one of them is being clear and being being on that same wavelength
right.
of understanding. That communication has to be there. So you guys are open and honest and talking with each other, communicating about what your needs are, but then also being on the same wavelength. Like, okay, I want to be open, but I want to be in a locked-in relationship. No, you guys have to both want to be in an open relationship on that same, and that's the only way I feel like having a strong relationship is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you guys have to have the same mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like even from like just a religious background standing, I think is also important because that can tear up families too. You know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
like why be Christian and then this guy's Muslim and then like it's just chaos in the home.
It's true. There's always going to be arguments and
Yeah.
disagreements and.
So you either both have to have the same
Same
open
mindset.
mindset, like you know, God is everywhere, God's inside of me, or whatever.
If one's doing it, the other has to be okay with doing that as well.
Yeah, or find somebody who's going to be thinking that same way. You know.
My thought is like what you brought up about like STDs. That's something I wonder how people in those relationships talk about that, especially with the people that they're interacting and being intimate with outside of that relationship. It's like how you having that conversation with them.
I would imagine that they do have
It's
a lot of
serious
Yeah, they do.
Very open
I've seen a lot of chats with these polyamorous people, and that's one of their big things they talk
Yeah,
about.
but how do you trust? Like, hey, have you got tested lately? And they say, yeah, God tested when. But it's like, how can you trust that
Exactly,
person?
because they're with
That's
other
true.
people.
Yeah.
You know.
Once they all just go together.
Yeah.
I mean,
Girl,
it's a topic that
possible.
I'm not exactly, you know.
I feel like it would be uncomfortable for certain people, especially like I hear that they would like ask them for like physical proof, like papers, like show your results, so I know.
It's trying
Well,
times.
again, that's another thing that everything is relative to every person. If that's something that you're comfortable with, then that that's something that can be agreed upon.
Yeah, I think it just has to be agreed upon, you know, first. Like you set the expectation, no matter which kind of relationship you're going into. You know, like when I met my husband now, like he knew that was a direction that I was going in, and I knew that was a direction he was going in. So it made it much more easier for us to come together and have that same wavelength of understanding and move towards that direction, right? Because it was clear and open from the beginning. I feel like as long as we have clear, open communication around what our needs are and what we're looking for, and also have a strong list of deal breakers as well, like things that you're not going to put up with. And so you know what to identify when that person does come in, like what you are not going to go after, you know,
Or put up with.
And, you know, having a strong deal breaker list, but also having a strong list of like what you're looking for to move forward in a relationship. Those two, you're solid.
So does anyone have any other questions or comments that they wanted to make before we kind of end this conversation? Yeah, please.
So you know how like you guys are saying like how people like don't know how to love? I think that people don't know really how to love because they've been hurt so many times that they just can't, they don't know how to love people in a certain, like in that way. Like,
Do you have an example?
like for example, like people at school, like I had, like when I had people to go to school, like a lot of people would be in relationships and they just like get their heart broken that they'd be like they just don't know how to love and they don't know if they can ever fall in love again. Like they just don't know like what love is anymore.
Okay. They don't know what love is anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would just be like, well, it takes time. Like you have to find the right person. Like you won't find them right away,
Yeah.
but then eventually you do. Like
No, you're 100% right. I think that
Yeah.
a lot of people have that experience, and I think defining what love is, I think, is kind of like the first step for people who may not think I don't think I can find love again because I've been hurt so bad. Well, I think taking some time to really think about what love means to you, because everyone has their own definition of what love actually is, would be a good place to
But
start.
I feel like then you get people who are just so they have too much fear and are so desperate that they'll stay in relationships that really have past expiration dates just because they have like
Fear about breaking up and
so
starting
you can
over
tell
again.
like it's
Yeah,
done.
they've devoted so much time with this person,
Yeah.
so much effort that it's just at this
So
point.
they
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Might as
people
well
hold
stay.
on to relationships that they need to let go of, and I think it's because of sex why they stay.
Wow. So I think it's important in those situations for people to like take a look at why am I staying? Why am I staying here? I'm staying here because I'm maybe financially dependent on them. So maybe you'd want to look at like your career and look for a stable job. Like there's so many reasons why people stay in a relationship. I think the more you are aware of what your needs are, why you stay in unhealthy relationships, what you can do if you're staying, if you're choosing to stay, how can you keep yourself safe, what love is, how you love yourself. Like there's so many elements in this conversation, and it's really hard to kind of like end it here because I know there's so much more to say and so much more to kind of like talk through and figure out and comment on and stuff. But I really, really appreciate each one of you for like giving your experiences, sharing your heart, your opinions, your questions, your comments, and being vulnerable. So thank you for that. And thank you for everyone who's watching. And I hope that people again are learning or have learned something from this conversation. And yeah, we just wanted to make sure that you know that if you ever wanted to continue this conversation with, maybe like a healthy sexuality clinic that's near to you, or find an organization like Braids for AIDS, if you want to learn more on sexual safety and healthy sexuality, do your best to reach out to someone, and I'm hoping that you get your needs met. And thank you for tuning in and for listening to our conversation.